Welcome to the Holy Smokes Podcast, a show about faith, friendship, fine tobacco, and drink. I'm Steve Reiter in the Lion's Den with honestly, one of my favorite guys in the Colorado Springs area, Joe Gurzi. Joe, welcome, my man.
Steve, it's an honor, buddy. Thank you for inviting me on. Yeah, excited.
I've always loved you. Always thought the world of you. I mean, from the first time I met you, it was like just connecting. And then there was one time, 1 year ago, like earlier this week or last week, where I happened to be in Southern California. You happened to be in Southern California. And we got together. You have a little trailer, fifth wheel that you took out there, and you parked it at a state park, wasn't it? Like right next to LAX, right on the beach.
Dockweiler State Park, right on the beach.
And we sat back and we had a cigar, and it was just an amazing conversation and just some really good time hanging out. And
it was rich. It was
so good. I'm so glad that we were able to get that done. So first question, what you smoking?
I am smoking a Providencia Spectrum. My first one. I'm here. It's one of the newer lines. I'm a Providencia guy anyway. Dear friend that was involved in it for quite a few years. So
Reed Grafke.
Reed Grafke, absolutely introduced me to him, and actually JD introduced these to me at a Wild at Heart boot camp, and it was the El Santo box press.
Yeah.
And it was simply amazing. So I had to get a hold of Reed. It took me a year to get him to respond, but I got a lot of good cigars out of that. So.
I have an Aroa Maduro, and I got 5 of these off a cigar bid, and I had it in March, my first one back in March, based on the recommendation of the tobacconist there at the little cigar lounge in Madison, Wisconsin that I checked out, and I really liked it, and so getting 5 of them on cigar bid, I'm really happy.
It does look rich, nice dark wrapper on it.
Oh yeah, and it's a full Maduro too. So
nice.
The binder, the filler, and the wrapper are all Maduro, and so it's got this rich, full-bodied flavor that really is good with my palate.
Yeah.
So you are a Southern California kid.
I am born and raised. When these young kids come up and say, "Yeah, I'm from the OC." I usually tell them I am the OC. I mean, I'm an old guy. We kind of developed that whole thing back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So,
what was it like growing up there?
Oh man, it was unlike today. It was wonderful. We'd wake up. We had the sun-kissed Orange Grove packing plant just down the road, so the back fence was nothing but smell of orange blossoms, in the spring and summer, and we get to run and play through that. I mean, it was leave the house open, go have fun, no restrictions. You just came home when the cowbell rang, Literally,
your mom had a cowbell.
My mom, I now own that cowbell.
My mom also had a cowbell, and she'd ring it for dinner.
That's exactly.
We'd hear it, and all right, it's dinner time.
It was great. If we didn't hear it, the neighbors would hear it, and it would be like a little, deal going down the community. Gurzi, it's time to go home. Gurzi, it's time dinner. So we got the message. We were never late. So yeah.
Well, when you're a kid, a growing boy, dinner is like, finally.
Finally, yes, exactly. So it was laid back. It was easy going back then. But I think just about anywhere in the country, back in the 60s and 70s, we didn't have a lot of worry and care about. We just went and had fun. So
what kind of home did you grow up in?
I grew up in a mixed home. Really funny. My mom is a PK, but never really, took us to church a lot. Church was the holidays, basically. Easter, Christmas, just kind of she thinks we need to go there. My dad, on the other hand, he grew up as a confused young man. He was a Mormon Catholic. So half the family was Mormon, the other half was Italian Catholic. So it rubbed him not quite in the right way. So his Christian life wasn't really a Christian life until probably, I guess I would probably say the last 15 years, and he is an amazing man now. I mean, working with prison ministries in his mid 80s, and so it took him some time to see the light. I've got a brother that's a pastor. I got a brother that's a proclaimed atheist. And then I've got a couple others that say, yeah, there's a God, but I don't have time to go worship him. So it's a mixed bag.
So what kind of home did you grow up in then? I mean, what your parents do? And
Dad was an oil refinery guy for a lot of years. His dad owned an oil refinery in Long Beach, California. He started off in the Navy and then kind of went to work for his dad, and then he took a job. His big job was Xerox Corporation as a director of facilities for Xerox Corporation, and so it was a very stable but strict household. I mean, there's 5 kids, so to feel the love, to try to get it to go around was not an easy thing to do for both of them. I don't think they truly understood. It's just like, I got 5 kids and I'll give them what I can give them. But we were involved.
What were you involved in growing up? Sports?
I did
academics?
baseball. A little offended that my dad would go coach somebody else's team instead of coach mine. It's like, dude, I'm your son. You should have been over with me. But just kind of in that realm. A lot of criticism about how good or how bad you play, but never real coaching in it. I mean, it was, even though he was loving, he was a very angry man. Very angry man. I mean, you could touch him off. I mean, and knowing his story now, and his childhood growing up, it was not easy for him at all. So,
what was that growing up for him?
14 kids, a dad that lived it down 2 doors down in another woman's house while mom's taking care of, just kind of catting around, not being a father, not being present. Go and do it on your own. So when he hit 18, he just signed up and went in the Navy and left. So,
how did his anger affect you as a kid? Did you take that anger or did you withdraw or something else?
it was an eggshell thing for me and probably my brothers, not so much my sister, but the first couple of us, we knew what not to do. And if we did, we knew what the consequences were going to be. Even if it wasn't anything bad, it was, you got him mad. Don't wake him up. I'm working second shift. I don't want to hear you in my house. Go out and play. Don't come back until I'm gone to work. Just stuff like that. It was. But again, on the flip side, hey, we're going camping and we're going to go fishing. And, so I mean, he played kind of both sides of the card type thing. Very, very hard man. But at the same time, he really tried to do his best to get us to grow. So as far as mine, in my younger days, I started adapting some of that anger, some of that resentfulness and stuff, but we learned.
Talk about your mom.
My mom probably wounded all of us more than my dad did. She was a coddler. You have 4 boys. It's adventure time. We're going to climb the curtains, We're going to go do crazy and dangerous stuff. And she would handcuff us from, that ability. It was kind of, I don't think you need to be doing that. No, take that towel off your back. You're not jumping off the roof today. Well, come on, what kids didn't. So, or wait till your dad gets home. He's gonna paddle you, and and I think it was because she was so protected from her dad being a pastor. He was very, very strict and very, very protected of her. She was the middle child of 3. She had an older sister, her, and then her younger brother. So, but he was a good guy. I mean, he kept to himself. He was a very quiet man. He passed way too early. He passed at 66. Stage 4 cancer took him, so it was a shock to hear
old were
that
you
phone
at the
call.
time?
Well, 66 makes me 11 years old at the time, and their bedroom was right next to ours, and, landlines, and, so when my dad answered the phone and then my mom got the news, I mean, you could hear everything through the walls of the house and everything. So it was not a real nice night for us, to hear that. But,
Were your grandparents involved? Your other grandparents involved in your lives?
my mom's side of the family, yes, we would be visiting them quite often.
Where were they at?
Grandparents, they were in Long Beach.
Okay.
Everybody kind of stayed in the Long Beach area. My family, not very adventurous when it came to getting out of California. I guess I could be called the black sheep of that one. Just I needed to get out of the rat race and everything. So,
When did your family settle in Orange County in California?
oh my gosh. I would probably guess family came into the country in 1901 from Italy, and they went in through Ellis Island, so we're, red-blooded Americans. And from there, they kind of migrated Chicago, Philadelphia, and started kind of moving west. So I would probably say that it was probably the late 1920s that they started coming into California and kind of owning the ports and the docks and all that stuff. It was a very interesting Italian family. Very interesting Italian family. Half of them were deported back to Italy and told never come back to the United States. And my grandfather, my dad's father, was smart enough to be legitimate in the businesses that he did. So, there's a sketchy side and there's a good side to it. But it was a true, migration of true Italian family coming to America.
So, high school, where'd you go after that?
Oh my gosh. We settled, let's see, 1956. My dad bought his first house just as he got out of the Navy. I was born in 55 and moved into that house, and we all grew up in that house. My folks sold that one when I was long gone, out of school, out of college, all the stuff. They sold that and then moved out on their own and did their own thing. So I would probably say the late 1980s, they stayed in the same house. And they added on, and so it grew with the family and everything. But yeah, it was the same house, very stable, settle in and not wanting to go anywhere else. And I think that was my dad, more of, I'm tired of moving around as a young child with my dad, and this, that, and everything that went on with it, that maybe I'm going to try to make this a little more stable than I had. And he did a fair job of that. So, yeah.
So what did you do after high school?
Oh my gosh. After high school, I went to college. It was a small little community one in Huntington Beach, California, called Golden West College. And I was doing criminal investigation, kind of cop work type stuff. Through high school, I worked with and got to do the ride-alongs with the Garden Grove Police Department and Santa Ana Police Department. Just kind of had a vision that maybe I wanted to be a police officer, And so I started doing that. And my dad got me a job at Xerox, of all places. So I started working there for 10 years. So the college kind of backed out. I got married at a young age. I think just turned 20, got married. So I kind of backed the college out of it and went to work for Xerox for 10 years. And they were having some major layoffs all of a sudden. And they were offering people 10 years or more severance packages to leave. So I took that. And that was the start. That was 1983, and that was the start of my career as a government contractor doing different types of work. I would call it technical security. So 1983, I stepped into a company and got to start a government security career. And in 1984, I guess it was probably February of 1984, I was asked if I would like to take the opportunity to train with the FBI in counterterrorism because the U.S. Olympics were coming to Los Angeles for 1984, and I guess Berlin was the 4 years earlier where the terrorist attacks and things went on. So they were concerned, and I had some friends that gave me an opportunity to get into that. So that kind of got me into my career of government work. So yeah, I traveled all over the U.S. Doing threat assessments and inspections and just all kinds of fun stuff.
So what were you doing with Xerox?
Xerox. I started off with Xerox as a line technician, soldering little microchips for their computer systems. And it was more of, the division I was in was more of a breast cancer detection. They were kind of like innovators way back in the day of having all of this. So I was in the line of doing all that, and through the years got promoted and ended up as a facilities manager in one of their divisions out in El Segundo, California.
Okay.
So,
and then the government contractor stuff really gave you a chance to get back into
the police investigating, because that's where my desire, my love really was kind of,
How did that come about?
It was really strange. I wasn't married. I was recently divorced, and this young lady said, "Hey, I've got this opportunity that I think you'd be a great fit for over at this company called Argo Systems, which was a young defense contractor. And we really need somebody. We've got a brand new facility, and I think, you could come in and take over our facility." And I was like, okay, let me talk. So found how lucrative that kind of business was as far as what pay and everything else came along with it. But once they found out what my background was, I was kind of rushed through the facility part and found somebody that could do that, and they put me into their physical security, so background investigations, a lot of inspections of subcontractors, their materials, making sure. So that's kind of how this started to grow. And then to have another friend, come up and say, "Hey, I really think you might be interested in looking at this with the FBI part." And it was like, yeah, I did. So that excited me, and then that got me into more of the, and I can't give names, but I can tell you that breaking in the middle of the night to classified work facilities to test their operating systems and their security is quite interesting when you are trying to stand back up with an M16 in the back of your head. Yeah. So, or a shotgun, or, you think you see them moving. So, but our team was tasked, me and another retired Marine, a gunny sergeant. We would go all over the country, and we would break in to, contractor classified facilities, military installation facilities, and test their systems.
What kind of setup did it, and what kind of preparation, and who was involved, and who knew, so that way it wouldn't escalate?
Good question. We would always talk to the director of security for that facility.
Yeah.
And then we'd bring in their security manager and say, "These things are happening. You can't talk about them. This has to be, all impromptu. We've got to know how well you're protected." And
did you let them know when you would be doing it?
No, we would just tell them that it's coming up and that we need 2 forms of contact if we can't get, because this is going to be in the middle of the night, and if you don't hear your phone ring, you wear earplugs, we need to call somebody that's going to say, "Yes, indeed, these individuals are authorized and you are being tested." So yes.
Wow.
And there were a couple times where it took some really some real good convincing where they got your boot in the back of your neck and you're on the ground and they're saying, quit talking. And it's like, okay, you know. So I think that was the exciting part of it. I mean, there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of policies that have to be written, a lot of procedures reviewed. I mean, helping a lot of these facilities to design, build the facility that they're going to work in and make sure they're complying. You know, that was all the boring paperwork stuff of it.
Yeah.
So when we got to go test them, it was a joy.
It must have been an adrenaline rush.
Yeah. It especially when you think you know what they're doing. You see a blacked out truck going down, you're going, okay, they're on the east. Okay, they're going to be probably circling around this way. And then the next thing you know, the rooftop behind you has got 3 or 4 guys up there with fully loaded automatic weapons.
Are watching you.
And they're, get on the ground, and then all of a sudden guys come out of nowhere and knocking you down on the ground. So yeah, there's a lot of adrenaline there. Please, you find a tree before you break into the facility.
Was Area 51 ever one of your?
No, and besides that, I could never confirm nor deny that information. No, Area 51 was never in any of my deal. This was just, the different contractors out there that did business with U.S. Space Command. I can say that part of it, that I did most of the stuff through the U.S. Space Command contracts.
And how long did you do that job?
That was my career, 20.
Really?
Yeah. And then I came to Colorado and became just like a general contractor builder, just took my experiences from helping design these multi-million-dollar facilities and say, I can take this into, home building or commercial building and, project manage stuff like that. So I did that for quite a few years here.
When did you come to Colorado?
1998.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a booming time.
Yeah. It took off.
Did you come to the Springs area?
Right into the Springs area. Yeah. We still live in the same house that we purchased back then. So, yeah. Yeah, wife came out here before I did. She was the one that had the, you got 30 days to move. She's also a government contractor, and the contract that she was on, she enjoyed it, but she wanted to come back to Colorado. This is her roots right here. They're pioneers of this state. So this is her roots, and business that I had to conduct out here, I told myself years ago, before I was even married to my wife, that I was retiring in Colorado, that this is where I retire. And I got to do that a year ago, July. So dreams come true.
So how'd you meet your wife?
That's a story of its own. One of the agencies that I worked with, we were doing a, back then, computer security seminar on how to classify, now this is going to date me, how to classify floppy disks. How do you compartmentalize on a floppy disk the different classifications of material and all that good stuff. And this was in 1991, and she was sitting up, this fiery redhead sitting right up in the front, and we were speaking on this thing, and I know I was just finished up my portion of it. John was about to do his, and she raised her hand and she said, "It can't be done like that." We're going, wait, what do you mean? We're the government. We're not asking you. This is what we're telling you you're going to have to do to classify and compartmentalize. And she goes, but it cannot be done that way. So it started this big bantering back and forth between our team and her, basically. And so we said, okay, we're going to sidebar this thing for a little while. So we had discussions with her, and come to find out she had some very good points. Seminar ended, she left. About a year later, we're doing the same one, only with new points in this thing. Who's sitting up in the front row? Fiery redhead. I said, there's something about this. And it was probably 3 or 4 months after that I ended up getting the contract on her organization. She worked for Ball Aerospace, and I ended up getting the contract on the security, inspections, compliance. So I was kind of that compliance officer on the government side that came in and did the inspections, and I thought that was just kind of the weirdest thing that all of a sudden, here I am with that. So we started dating, long distance dating. I was in New Mexico. She was obviously here in Boulder, Colorado. And we dated for about a year, and kind of an off and on thing. And then one day I just said, you know what? Can't do this anymore. And I flew out to California and I proposed and said, now let's go to our prospective organizations. And because she had since left Ball, and now she was over at U.S. Space Command, working for Trident Data Systems, who was bought by Veridian, who was bought by General Dynamics. So we went to our prospective companies and said, we're getting married. He who comes up with the best package first gets, and turns out her organization picked me up a week before mine could even come up with an offer. So we got married, and 2 years later we had our beautiful daughter, Rachel, and here we are today, 2 gorgeous grandkids. Now in North Carolina at Fort Bragg. Son-in-law leaves on November 5th. He just finished 82nd Airborne training, so now he's part of the 82nd Airborne Army. So he's getting ready to leave our house now and get back out with the family where he belongs. So that just kind of brings us into, perspective of family.
You're really involved with John Eldridge's ministry, Wild at Heart.
Yes.
How did that start? How did you get involved?
Oh, that was years ago. Discovery, DCC Church. We're no longer participating in there. We moved on to a different church. But
you were one of the very, very early.
Help plant, moved it around, box, church in a box, moving it from elementary schools to high schools and all that good stuff. Our lead pastor left, and we had associate pastors. After about, 5 years or so, the lead pastor wanted to go back to Florida. Both his daughter and his son got married, and then they were going to have, both sides. Now he's got grandkids coming, so they moved to Florida. So we had associate pastors kind of bouncing back and forth, trying to keep the church afloat, and it was struggling. We really thought that, maybe we're going to lose this. So we did some interviewing, and we came across a man named Greg Lindsay, who is an amazing, amazing pastor. He got a group of us, 12 of us, 12 knuckleheads, kind of like what Jesus ended up doing, and saying, I've got this idea. He says, I read this book called Wild at Heart. I want everybody on this team to read Wild at Heart, and then I think we're going to launch this in the church as part of the growth and, how to talk to people, bringing Jesus into the story with their life and how it pertains to ours today and how it all, kind of melds together. So we did this, and then it was nothing short of amazing. And he says, okay, now I've got us all signed up for a boot camp. And this was 15 years ago. And went to my first 2006. Went to my first boot camp, and my eyes were opened. To the woundings that a man will take over the years, the love lost, the rescuing of a beauty, just the whole masculinity story of what's been lost since the fall, and how complacent we became, and it struck me. So I said, I want to do this again. So the next year I applied, and because we have a dear friend there, and I won't give up a name, I was able to go a second year by myself, which was even more amazing because now you're doing it on your own. Your quiet time's your time. You're not with a group of men, just kind of bantering and going back and forth. Unpacking's great, but sometimes you need that. And I even got more out of that, and my heart just kept growing more and more for rescuing men and bringing them back into the fold, the warrior that they were made to be. So needless to say, I did 3 on my own, 2 basic boot camps, 1 advanced boot camp, and then I have worked on the work crew, volunteer team, and intercessor team for, let's see, I've done somewhere between 16 and 18 camps over the years. So,
Describe what Wild at Heart Boot Camp is about for people that aren't familiar with it.
oh my goodness, wow.
And why should someone consider it?
You should consider it, especially if you are a man of God. I mean, if you are trying to get that foot into Jesus' footsteps as close as you possibly can, this will wake you up in what we call a non-religious, it doesn't have that religious veil. It's very relaxed, and it takes you through a process of your life and helps you realize and unpack the damage that has been caused from your childhood to who you are today. It helps you unpack that, helps you release that, helps you renounce the agreements that you may have made with the devil on, I'm not that good, I'm just an idiot. Those are agreements, and those agreements are footholds. And those footholds is what Satan's looking for to get in. So we're opening the eyes of men to help them become a warrior against that for their own personal being, and then beyond that to then help others grow into it. So a 4-day camp in the mountains, which may not be for everybody, but 4 days up there of discussions and adventure is simply amazing. I mean, if you haven't done one, do it. Find one. I know that with the COVID that's going on, they're not doing them anymore, but there are basic boot camps that are starting up, which I guess kind of leads into my little commercial here, that we are launching the first Colorado Springs Wild at Heart basic boot camp this February. We've got a great team. They are all Ransomed Heart alumni and work crew folks like myself, and we've got a great center up in the mountains that can put you in the middle of adventure, and we're going to do a Thursday through Sunday afternoon, boot camp just like that team would do for them. So yeah, we're really excited about that. It's a message that needs to be out there. It needs to make more warriors, more men to come alive and understand how God made their heart, what he made their heart for, and then take it out there and do that. I tell people, I ask them, what makes you come alive? And what is your heart's passion? And I'll give them a couple days to chew on that before we come back for the next study. And typically they'll give me the answer and say, well, what am I supposed to do with it? And I say, go do that. Whatever makes you come alive, go do that. That doesn't mean quit your job, quit your life with your family or anything. It means find a way to do your passion, what makes you come alive. I tell everybody mine is fly fishing. I have a ministry. I teach fly fishing. I take brokenhearted pastors. I take men out that are, kind of questioning their faith. Get them in the wild. Teach them how to fly fish. Unpack the heart. Men come alive when they get outside of the 4 walls. That's what it's all about. Getting out of the walls and just unpacking the life and diving into their heart, because people don't do that enough. Share their story, share your story. I would say story is the most important out of all of this Wild at Heart, going in and absorbing all of this and understanding it and wanting to work with it. That's secondary. Number one is your story, sharing that and not diminishing any part of it because it's your story. It's who you not are, but who you were, and now what have you become through that story, and then sharing it and releasing it. It helps you unpack. It takes away a lot of the pain, a lot of the hurt. And believe me, we all carry some pretty heavy, crazy stuff, and we're no different than one another. We are not.
Now you have carried something that you didn't even know about.
Yes. Wow. Yeah.
That just kind of just came up.
I was struggling with my story. I mean, my story is long, and I would share it with anybody that wants to sit down over a big stick and, good bottle. Be just wonderful. And I started seeing a counselor, very, very, very good counselor. His name is Sam Jolman. If anybody in the Colorado Springs area is, thinking that they need to talk to somebody, Sam is the man. I mean, I spent 5 years with this guy, and it took that long to really unpack it.
What drove you to even start to see Sam in the first place?
Wild at heart.
Really?
Because you're going so deep into your soul, into your mind. Jesus will only give you what you can handle. That's exactly what it says. So you're not going to get everything hit you at once. It would break you down and just destroy you. So with that, it just kind of, I said, you know what? I need someone that can help me unpack and walk me through, and Sam came highly recommended through the ministry. So I went there. And I really thought that I had a good handle on that. I don't want to say I'm ashamed because, again, I don't want to diminish my story. But as I started getting into my teen years, some of the things that were said to me, some of the woundings from my dad, I'd be standing around, he'd be doing something, and I'd be in the garage with him, but I'd have my hands in my pocket. And he'd just stand there and look at me and go, "What are you doing? You playing with yourself? Why are your hands in your pocket? You some kind of faggot or what?" I mean, just things like that. And I was like, I don't need to be here, I'm a teenager, I'm gonna walk off. So I didn't do anything, process it, just kept putting it back in my mind, And as life went on, I started kind of medicating, through my teenage, 20 some years, 20 into my early 20s. I don't want to say 20 some years, I'm just into my early 20s. And it led to other things, with women and everything else that, now I've got to prove myself because I'm not gay, and why would he even think that? So Sam kind of helped me unpack all this thing, and I thought I was there. I truly thought that, man, breakthrough, I'm there.
But then?
But then, gosh, pause, hesitate. I'm coming back from a project in Golden, Colorado, and it was late, and I'm coming down C-470 about 85 miles an hour because I wanted to get to the church. The women were going on their very first women's retreat. I wanted to be there with the pastor and the team and just kind of, send everybody off and all that good stuff. I said, okay, Jesus, you have fed me a lot. You've shown me a lot in my life. I am so grateful for all the healing. This is just, and so I'm just talking through this. And I asked, is there anything else that I need to see, to work on? What's left? And buried way back, and psychologists will tell you this, it happens. It was buried so far back into my subconscious that I just didn't know what to do except basically slam on the brakes and pull over to the side of C-470 and cry my eyes out. When I was about 5, 6 years old, I had an older cousin. He was like 13, 14 years old. And we were over visiting, and he'd asked his folks if I could spend the night, and they said yeah. And there's my aunt and uncle, and my mom and dad were there, and everybody said yeah, no problem, yeah, you just send him home, it's around the corner anyway. And that night, and I couldn't name it for almost 5 years, and I don't know that I want to even use that kind of language that I said to Sam. I don't know what you allow or disallow in this thing.
You allow everything.
But it took me about 1.5 years to actually name it. I skirted around. He touched me. He molested me. And what he really did. And Sam he pushed me, and he pushed me. That one day, he knew we were on an edge, and I did not even realize it. But basically, I just said, "What do you fucking want me to say, asshole? That I was raped? Okay, I was raped by my cousin." Man, the release that came from that, the love that came down from Sam, from Jesus, opened it all up. The floodgates, everything released. I still live with it today. I still tell this story to all the men, because there are men out there that have gone through the same thing that are just
too ashamed.
They're too ashamed to talk about it. And so was I for a lot of years. That's why I buried it so much. But to have that breakthrough, and then to know it's time. It's time to release that to other men. Maybe they will say, you know what? I need some help too. It happened to me. And I'm
sure you've heard that.
A lot.
Really?
A lot. It is unfathomable. There's no excuse for it. Yeah, just was wrong. It was just wrong. But with that release came a whole new me at that point.
How so?
I didn't have the anxiety that I always felt, wondering, what is this? What shoe's going to fall next? What's going to happen? Analyzing everything before it can even be done. Now I've released it and said, you know what? God's got this. He's got this. We're going to let him take it and go from there. I am not going to force it. I'm not going to move it. I am just going to take me and say, lead me on. I'm ready for this. I am ready to just move in whatever direction you move me. I'm not going to I make my own decisions, but not without counsel now. So, yeah. A lot less of the bull in the china closet. I'm a big guy, and people, I'm very, very opinionated, but I try to take in consideration, and I like to listen and all that stuff. Before, it was more of my way or the highway, buddy. That's my opinion. It ought to be yours. And that release kind of turned my direction and my devotion and the love for my wife and my kids, and just moved me down the line saying, I need to use this, I need to share this, I need to make this part of my mission in life. So that kind of...
Your wife and kids notice a difference?
Oh yeah, big time.
Like, what have they said to you?
Well, let's back it up to right after this thing with Sam was about the time that Reed and I, we spent a lot of time in his backyard during the weekdays with Monette and everything. And we would just be sharing back and forth. I mean, it was just a whole lot of Jesus and a whole lot of love in there. But he then said, you know what? I got to go. It's Wednesday night. I got to go to a thing called Holy Smokes. And I said, what's that? And he told me about it. So I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go have cigars at Holy Smokes. She goes, you know how I feel about cigars. Boeing only allows us to have one cigar a month, or they're going to charge my insurance, $50 more, for you to have more than one cigar a month. I said, yes, dear, I understand. But as the time went on, and I spent the time with men like you, men like Reed, Paul, there's so many names out there that we'd take up too much time trying to get them all. My wife and my daughter would make sure on a Wednesday, even if I looked like I was deadbeat, you're going to Holy Smokes. The change in who you have become from where you were at to what you're doing now, you cannot ever miss out on. And my wife still today will call me from work and say, you are going to Holy Smokes tonight, right?
Yes, dear.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And she finally said, you know what, I'm not happy about you smoking so many cigars, but go do that. Go do that. So they've seen a significant change in who I am and what I believe and how I'm walking. These men and women in this organization have been life-changing for me too. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Joe, what advice would you give someone who they've been through a trauma like you, and for years they've just been avoiding it, stuffing it down, ignoring it, not addressing it,
but are aware of it?
Yeah.
Seek help, find counseling, whether you find a professional counselor or you find a group that has been through this, that they're unpacking on it, or if you have a dear friend that all the trust in your world, and I've got a lot of those because they're hearing my story, release that. Talk to Jesus. Have him bring you a confidant, a man that can listen without condemning. And that's a hard thing to do. You don't want to believe that your best friend's going to condemn you over that, but believe me, I've told the story before, and some of them just kind of blow it off. So it's a trust issue, but to heal from this, you need to speak on it. I just say find someone, professional on.
And what are the dangers if they continue to stuff it and ignore it?
Oh my gosh, they know the dangers. They're in the middle of the dangers. You're constantly proving to yourself that what happened does not make me gay, but yet I'm stuck in the middle of a pornography site trying to prove to myself that I'm not, that this still excites me, and it just gets deeper and deeper, and medicating could come into it, could be a factor already. Mine was in my younger years. I got smart, and was able to have a career in the government, so that was a non-issue, and I was one of the lucky ones that could just walk away from all of that at an early age and not look back. But there are men out there that are struggling with alcohol and drugs right now because they're struggling with that in their heart right now. And I think the first step is you've got to get that story out and talk about it and how it affected you.
Before we get to rapid fire questions, can you pray? I guarantee you right now, there's a listener right now, at least one, that you've pricked their heart and they need the courage to be able to make that step.
I had, and him, one of my dearest friends that just passed. We weren't done. We spent so much time together, unpacking who he was and who he wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And I still tell them we're not done. We're not done. There are a lot of men. I won't name anybody, but there are some men out there right now that they just need Jesus. They need him.
Can you lead them in a prayer?
I can. I'd say, Jesus, you know my heart. You know my heart for men. I chase after them. I want them to recognize who they are in your eyes, not in the eyes of other people, not in their own eyes of their past, but in the eyes of you, Lord. They are loved. You are their true Father, and they need your arms around them now, Jesus. They need your love. They need your strength. They need your counsel, Jesus. So I would just say, come into their hearts. Help them find the individual or individuals that can help them to understand, help them to unpack, to help them heal. That's the most important. We need to heal our hearts. And Jesus, I ask you, you know the men that I am speaking of. You know who they've become. Let's help them become the true warriors that you, Jesus, are looking for to battle against the evil one. In your name.
Amen. Joe Gurzi, let's get to rapid fire questions.
Rapid fire questions.
Hey everyone, before we get to the rapid fire segment, I wanted to talk about a way that you as a listener can support the show and the growth of Holy Smokes by becoming a monthly supporter at patreon.com/Holy Smokes. Patreon is a support platform, and for as little as $5 a month, you can get bonuses like ad-free versions of these podcast episodes, Holy Smoke swag like t-shirts, and more. That's patreon.com/Holy Smokes. We're looking to get 40 Patreon supporters at an average of $10 a month. And once we hit that, we'll be able to pay for all the costs for hosting, editing, writing, posting. I won't be paying for that out of my pocket or through the volunteering of my own personal time. And as we grow that number to 100 and 150, 200 patrons, we'll be able to do 2 shows a week, hire a part-time assistant and web developer, record on location and around the world, and more. I want to visit groups and get those stories from so many of you listeners that I hear from. I want to go to Seattle, and I want to go to Dallas, and I want to go to Charleston, South Carolina, and I want to go to Kentucky and Chicago and Phoenix, Atlanta, DC, Charlotte, back to Southern California, and more. We want to help grow your groups and plant new ones for those of you in areas without active groups. So, can you help us out? Become a regular supporter at patreon.com/Holy Smokes. There's a link in the show notes. That's patreon.com/Holy Smokes. Or if you want to make a one-time tax-deductible gift, go to paypal.me/Holy Smokes Club. That's paypal.me/Holy Smokes Club. And both of those links are in the show notes. Thanks.
Rapid fire.
How's that stick treating you?
I didn't get to smoke a lot of it since I've been talking a lot. I'm about halfway through it, and the flavor is very consistent. It has a nice little sweetness to it, but not sugary. It's the tobacco in it is it's pleasant. I'm enjoying it.
Providencia Spectrum.
Yes.
When did you first try cigars or pipe?
Oh my goodness. I have been doing cigars from my government career time. So early 1980s. Yeah.
What drew you to cigars?
I think at the time it was just the group of men And I was actually the cowboy ranger at the time, if you will. These guys were more of the sage. They were older than me. So I just kind of wanted to fit in. But I found that just having a stick and conversation was really cool. It was more than just puffing on a cigar. And believe me, I was a rookie for a lot of years, and had some bad sticks, some good sticks, and But yeah, it was the camaraderie, watching these men together, and I'm going, I want to be part of that. So I said, hey, can I try one? And that was kind of the beginning of the end. It just kind of, here we go.
You're a cigar guy, but do you do pipe as well?
I tried pipes. I don't like hanging and holding it like that. I don't like sometimes the bite. I mean, I've had some good tobaccos, I've had bad, just kind of like cigars. It doesn't appeal to me as much as the cigar does.
Favorite cigar?
Oh my gosh, I got a top 5 list, but the number one on there is a Cohiba Behike 56. That is I started cutting my teeth on that one back in the mid 80s, and once I got that, I mean, it's one of the most consistent first, third, second, third to the end of it. It's consistent. The flavor is just the same all the way through, which I enjoy. There's no biting. It's easy draw.
I got a box of those from a dear friend, and I tell you what, whenever I gift them to someone, I don't pull them out very often, but I'll have a few out of a box, but I usually just like to gift them to people, and everyone just loves it. Yeah. Absolutely loves it.
Yeah. If you were to label that, I call it the crack cocaine of cigar connoisseurs. I mean, once you've had one, it's like, I got to have another. So yeah, that's my number one cigar, though.
Most expensive cigar you ever smoked?
It was a 1926 Padron, and I don't remember the name of it. Reed gave it to me, and when he told me how much he spent on them, I almost fell over backwards. But it was better than $50 a stick.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably the most expensive one that I've ever smoked.
Best dollar for dollar cigar that you get?
I think best dollar for dollar that I enjoy is the Oliva V Milanio. That is a very tasty stick. I keep those in several lengths and sizes and shapes in my humidor. I carry those in my Herfador as a go-to, because it is a very, very tasty cigar that's not going to break the bank.
Yeah, I just got a box of those on Cigar Bid. I'm about halfway through that box, and they're good. They're a really good stick.
I'm about to try a new one coming from Cigar Bid called the Reposado 96 Habano Solomon. So I've got a box of 20 of those coming. They're going to be interesting because they're 7.1 by 60. So I mean,
that's a couple hour stick.
It's a big stick, but I've heard very good reviews on it. So I got it at a great price on Free Fall, and said I'll buy times 2.
Save one for me. I want to try it.
I will do that.
Your go-to place to get smokes?
My go-to place is Habana, but locally I like the folks down at Smoker Friendly. I know the owner; she's a sweet lady, and then got friends that work there, Zane and all that. So yeah, a little plug for not Smoker Friendly, but Stag Tobacconists. I'm sorry, yeah. Smoker Friendly. I'll do business with, but yeah.
Your Splurge cigar, I'd assume the Cohiba or something else.
My Splurge cigar is the 1492 Linea Siglo 6, which is the 500th anniversary of Cohiba, the cigars. So that's my Splurge cigar.
Favorite liquid pairing with your smoke?
I have a very eclectic palate. I mean, it can vary depending on the mood, the day. I do enjoy a nice, peaty single malt, though. I grew up, my dad is a single malt guy. I grew up on single malts. So I love the Islay, peatiness of a Lafroig or a Ardbeg. Ardbeg's a little rough sometimes, but I like that little smoke, that little extra smoke flavor.
Most interesting person you've ever met through cigars?
The most interesting one is the owner of Armstead Tobacco in Fayetteville, North Carolina. The man has 45 years of cigar industry, and to sit down and listen to the history and everything, it was an eye-opener. And so if you're ever in that part of the country, that is the go-to place, and you won't be disappointed, especially if you sit down and talk with Al.
Most memorable cigar experience?
My most memorable, and I really wished he was there, but I was at a small little 4-man retreat over on the other side of Edwards, Colorado, at a place that doesn't exist anymore called Yarmity Ranch. And I was sitting outside with handwritten memoirs from Lieutenant General Hal Moore, reading his stories. Because I actually stayed, the room that I was in was called the Hal Moore Room. They did a lot of the Wounded Warrior stuff up there for a lot of years, and Hal came to kind of bless the place and be part of it. So I was lucky enough to score that room, and the books and the little diaries that he wrote in while he was there. Interesting. I would have loved to just been having that stick that I was having with him instead of his books. So yeah.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel. Yeah, Marvel.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
You could flip a coin.
I like them both.
Yeah, I've seen them both. I'm not a huge fan. I don't want to offend anybody, but I enjoyed both of the sides of it. So yeah.
Favorite food?
A favorite food? Oh my gosh, I'm a meat eater, baby. Yeah.
And an excellent grill master, by the way. Whenever you are at the grill, I know it's going to be some good, tasty meats.
And I'm about to do it again tonight with to answer your question, I have a Santa Maria tri-tip in my homemade rub, marinating out for the grill tonight. So yeah, I think that's my favorite, is the Santa Maria. Nice choice, just tender as can be, juicy.
Oh yeah.
And you've had those before.
Oh, it's so good, so good.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Dogs, cats, neither or both?
I have a dog. My wife has a cat. I won't let my wife hear that because I'm not claiming the cat. I have a chocolate lab that was a rescue. But I think the dog rescued me more than I rescued the dog.
How long have you had?
9. He's 9 years old this month. He's got a nice gray goatee going on like mine now. I mean, looks just like his dad. He's smart as a whip. He listens. He understands what I'm saying. Sometimes it shocks people to go, wait, that dog just do? Yes, he did. He understands. I mean, people have got dogs and animals that understand like that. I mean, but he's special to me. He's very special.
Nickname growing up?
Me?
College?
Oh, dude, I only had 2 nicknames. They shortened my last name to Gurz. So everybody say, hey, Gurz. And funny you should ask that, because I was going through looking for a book that I wanted to reread, and I found my old high school yearbooks. And everybody that wrote in there didn't write Gurz or Joe or anything. They wrote pastor or preacher, excuse me. They wrote preacher. Who knew that I was going to take that walk? I mean, I'm not a preacher per se or a pastor per se, but I have that heart for it. And I never really realized it until I reread all these things that people were writing, over my high school years through those, yearbooks and going, preacher, wow, how'd they know?
When did God get a hold of your heart?
Oh, he got it a couple times. He got it when I was younger. We lived just blocks down from Dr. Robert Schuller, so we had the Crystal Cathedral and the Tower of Power. So as a teen, I was involved in the Tower of Power for a few years and such, and then I kind of drifted off, and then it was...
But where did that come from? Because your mom, you said, didn't take you to church very often, and your dad wasn't at the time.
I had friends that, were involved, and, it was probably more of a want to be accepted in, just kind of, hey, I'll do what the crowd's doing type thing. I didn't go out on my own very much. I wasn't the leader of the pack type thing in my younger days. So it was, I was cautious. I was very cautious over that. So, just kind of following through there. And then it wasn't until we were in Texas, early 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
I had my first vision that really brought me to Christ. It was kind of my reckoning, if you will.
What was it?
And I still have these happen. My wife freaks out a little bit, but I was in the dream of, it was kind of like a wall. And I was just kind of going down this wall, kind of foggy on one side. You had the park and the families are playing and the balls are flying and the frisbees and the dogs are barking, just all the fun and everything over there. And I'm just kind of going down this thing going, I keep hearing choose. You got to choose.
Mm.
And as it proceeded, it started getting darker into it. And then the next thing I know, this figure comes up out of the fog and just grabs me and starts pulling me in. This is where the screaming started coming in. My wife's trying to wake me up, and I knew at that point that I needed to make a choice in my life of who I wanted to be and where I wanted to go. And Jackie had always been, she was one of those that she, as a small child, took herself to church because her family didn't go. So she just found a close Baptist church she could walk to, and she took herself, and she'd always say, we need to go to church. We need to go to church. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Never really followed through with it. And then it became okay, I'm going to go with you now. I need to interpret what just happened. And it was more of I went and listened to the pastor, and you feel like when you're first timer, they're looking right at you and everything's being told to you. It's and so I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm going to fill this seat every Sunday. I'm just going to be here. I'm just going to be here. Wasn't really present, but I was there. But I knew that something had been going on, so I kind of moved into that direction slowly in Texas. But when I came to Colorado, Jake says, we need to find a church. Okay, so we went and tried a church. Too charismatic for her. Too many speaking in tongues and running up and down the aisles. Scared her. Too passive in another one. And Rachel was going to this elementary school, and she kept coming home from school saying, Dad, they're opening a church at my elementary school. Well, that's cool. A couple days later, Dad, they're going to open a church at our elementary. And this went on for like a couple weeks. And finally, it just dawned on me, this is a message. I got to do something about this. And that's when we stepped into Discovery and helped build this church there were 38 people there at the time too, So I guess it was my daughter that really got me, really going into church.
What's one unusual fact that few people know about you?
I wouldn't know what to answer that because everybody, I'm a pretty open person. There's not a lot out there that I haven't already shared to everybody. I mean, unusual fact. I guess if I had to, and I'm gonna kind of go into another little thing with this because of it. I'm 65 years old here in just very, very, very short month here. So I still love adventure. I like to bleed. You know, people say you're too old for this, but
Well, that scar that's on your elbow.
yeah, that's
Well, I shouldn't say a scar. It's got stitches in it.
well, yeah, that's the most recent. Take one of the 3 plates out of my elbow that I did this past Memorial Day weekend. There was a time this year that I spent more time in the hospital and rode in more ambulances than I did in a campground. I mean, it's crazy, but yeah. So I still like to be dangerous. But dangerous for good, but I still like to be dangerous. I tell everybody I'm going to die young at a very old age. I'm not ready to give up the things that I do, which kind of got me into this thought of I need to write a book. So I've currently started a book now that is a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo, right now. Just kind of getting the thoughts in there and everything. But it's a book, and the title's called How Not to Bleed. And the beginning is, if you don't want to bleed, then sit in that easy chair, watch that boob tube, go to your mundane job, come home, and repeat. But if you're not afraid to bleed, let me tell you how to live an adventure. And then it's going to have my memoirs of everything that, from childhood, my career, everything, that I've done, broken, escaped from, all that good stuff. So, yeah.
Are you a reader?
Yes, I am. But it has to have a lot of adventure in it to keep my attention.
What are 1 to 3 of your favorite books not titled the Holy Bible?
Oh, not doing the Holy Bible in there. I think the very first one that I did when I was younger was the Hobbit series. Again, full of adventure, full of life, full of fantasy too, but it captured me. In some of my darker stages of life, a lot of the Stephen King series stuff kind of grabbed my attention for a while. Now I'm reading more into the theology and philosophy without mentioning the Bible. So other books by other authors, just to grow my ability to help other people through their walk. So just educational stuff now.
Do you have a life scripture? A single scripture that you're like, this is the most meaningful?
I wish I'd have brought my phone in here. I've got a list of them that sit on there, but did I not say, be strong in the Lord, do not be afraid. Go out and make disciples of all people. That's probably the one that sticks with me the most.
You an early riser, night owl, neither?
I flip a switch, Sometimes I'll go to bed early just to get up, go do something early. But a typical day for me, 6 a.m., 9:30, ready to start packing it in. So, yeah.
If you could live anywhere, where would you live?
I'm here. I'm in Colorado. This state spoke to me, and there are other states that I probably wouldn't mind going to, but I think this called me, and I love it here. I love the fact that I can be in the mountains in minutes. I can be on the rivers. I can be, just doing just about anything in Colorado.
Who's been the greatest influence in your life?
Through all the trials and tribulations, I would still say that my father was probably the greatest influence in my life. He taught me right and wrong. I mean, whether he was right or wrong in how he did things, it instilled values in me that, I don't think I could have gotten anywhere else. I mean, he's the reason I became who I am, you know? He really is.
What do you do for self-care, to rest, to recharge?
I'm on the river. Wife and I will be up in the mountains. We have time set aside through our busy schedules and our ministries that we need to get away and go recharge, either alone or together. But we set that's important in anybody's life, to set that time aside and clear the noise. And
You saw it consistently through the Gospels. That's what Jesus did.
Yeah.
He'd step away from the crowds.
Yeah.
There were all kinds of people that still wanted prayer, that still wanted to hear him teach, that still wanted what he could give them.
Right.
But he would step away
Yes.
and go up away and
Right.
pray and recharge.
And the river does that to me. The river does that to me. I tell everybody that I have a very beautiful wife of almost 30 years now, but I also have a mistress, and my mistress has more curves than my wife, and that is the river. And she understands, she knows that that's time that I need.
All right, last three questions. What does Holy Smokes mean to you, and what has it meant for your spiritual journey? You talked a little bit about it earlier on, but...
We did. Holy Smokes means to me a fellowship of men and women that's truly hard to find in today's world. We kind of push that off to the side as society, and we're not out seeking fellowship as much as we probably should. So I think the fellowship that you get from Holy Smokes, the men and the women that you meet, the stories that you hear, the successes and the failures that have come, you can relate so well with that. So yeah. And what was the second part of that one?
What has it meant for your spiritual journey?
Yeah, we kind of touched that. My wife sees that. It has certainly strengthened it a lot from seeing so many loved ones come and go, and to see the strength in the individuals that have suffered the losses. You know, that's encouraging to me. That's just encouragement, because I'm seeing so much loss. You know, this year for me should have been my loss. It should have been me. And we really thought it was going to be at one point. But again, God's not done with me. So to be able to...
Glad. I'm glad,
Thank you.
bro.
Thank you. So yeah, to be able to be part of that, really, it softens an individual. It helps your heart, knowing that there's more after that we're going to continue on, and there's people there that's going to help you.
All right, if you could have a holy smoke with any three people throughout history, living or deceased, who would they be? Can't name Jesus.
I'll see him soon enough anyway.
Hopefully not that soon.
No, not that soon. Not that soon. You know, but one would be Hal Moore. I would love to be able to sit down with that man.
Is he still around?
No, he passed away, I think, 2017. But I would like to be able to talk to him about his heart. I know that he was a man of faith. He was Catholic. But to see what he saw through his life, what did you do? That's the question. What did you do to recover from that? How did you handle that? Who did you use? Or did you just pack it away?
Summarize his story really quick for those that don't know, and I'm one of them.
Well, Hal Moore, as a lieutenant colonel in the Vietnam War, had his troops. They would follow him to the ends of the earth. Not a Patton type driver. You know, Patton could have a real attitude sometimes, and people just disliked him, including his troops. Hal Moore had a even temperament, family man, man of God, loved his wife, loved his kids, loved his family immensely. And then he loved the families of his troops as much. And his deal was that when they prepared and went into battle, he was the very first set of boots on the ground, the very last set of boots back on to the chopper, and he made sure that no man or woman, I think back then it was probably just men, but were left behind. He brought his people back, and he went through hell and high water to make it happen, and he wouldn't leave without it because of his heart for these men. And just, again, it just impresses me that, you know, he had that stamina. I just wanted to, you know, find out how did he deal with that in life afterwards.
That's number one.
Number one. I think, and I don't want to get political, but I think I'd love to would have been able to sit down with Ronald Reagan. One, to talk about his film career and how the heck did you take that into politics and become the man that people were looking up to at the time. You know, the strength that he endured in the time that we, you know, I mean, it was not one of the better times, you know, but we've seen that. I've seen a lot of it through the 60s, you know, through the 70s, the 80s. So, but he seemed like an interesting guy to talk to. Very articulate, willing to share, you know, just his thoughts. So, yeah, I think Reagan would be another one.
And the last one?
Kind of a weird one. Tozer himself.
Ooh. A.W. Tozer.
Yeah.
Why?
Intriguing, interesting. The stories he could write, and how do you make that come so alive? You know, just pick his brain. I think it would be a good stick with him.
All right. Last question. If we're to meet 1 year from today, and I got a bottle of your favorite single malt, what are we celebrating?
We're celebrating life, man. We're celebrating our successes. We're celebrating our ministries. We're celebrating the wins and the losses. I mean, we're celebrating Jesus, man. We're celebrating what he's doing for us right now.
Joe Gurzi, my man, thanks for being on the Holy Smokes podcast.
Steve, it's been an honor, man. Thank you.